miniskirts and were all the rage. I mean, I'm not complaining. I used to think they were great.
It was exciting. It was up. There's no doubt it was definitely upbeat.
The music was so good and so different and so exciting.
And people were smiling and enjoying themselves.
Everything happens in London, doesn't it? I was just a little old hit girl from Weston-super-Mare.
Flower people going around, flower, more at the weekends.
Because I knew the roads around where we lived, I wasn't afraid. It was dark, but that was fine. I had a torch. And other people would be walking about if they'd been to visit somebody, a neighbour or whatever. So you'd often meet somebody.
There was no fear. We were out in London. We were out in the West End of London. It didn't bother us. We were out together. You know, we weren't frightened of being attacked or mugged or anything. You know, it was just good fun.
Yeah.
Go to Soho from time to time. You can guess why. But you wouldn't do it at, you might be there at 10 o'clock at night, but I wouldn't be there at midnight, for example. You just wouldn't expose yourself to that, or to certain parts of the East End either. You just wouldn't do that.
We had more freedom in the sense that we weren't afraid, physically afraid, to be out and about anywhere. I suppose it's down to where, as I said, we lived in Weston, and it was a very safe and secure place.
At the end of our 36-hour pass, I arrived back at Paddington Station at 3:30 a.m. and then I'd walk from Paddington along Parade Street, down the Edgware Road, across Hyde Park Barracks into Knightsbridge, and then on to the barracks. I can honestly say I can't remember ever experiencing any danger.
One weekend, we went to a restaurant in Gloucester Road, had an evening meal, got out, got on the tube, went up the West End, went to Soho, stayed out all night, and then went back to Victoria Station and had a cup of tea in the morning on Sunday, caught the tube back to Gloucester Road, went to the same cafe, had breakfast, and then went home to Ealing. I got home at 10 o'clock in the morning.
And we went dancing at the 400 Club, where they had quite a lot of the popular groups of the 60s. So it was great fun. Friends and I used to go up to Exeter to see bands in the theatres up there. So we did that. But it was centred around music and dancing, really.
Oh yes, but Saturday afternoon, if we were going to the dance on Saturday night, we spent the whole afternoon getting ready to go out on Saturday night. Oh, wash my hair, all up in rollers in those days, of course. Oh yes, Dad telling me off because I'm standing at the ironing board in my petticoat.
The time that I was actually in London, I used to go to a jazz club most weeks, went to concerts in London, went to the proms, not the last night, but the proms, again with my landlord and landlady, really, a lot of it.
There were also pubs, of course. On Saturday night, you could sit in the bar at the Six Bells and listen to Humphrey Lyttelton and his band up on the first floor, if you couldn't afford the admission. Wonderful things in the King's Road.
Triumph Herald. That was a nice car. Dad always loved that car. He always used to say, could turn this car on a sixpence.
£60 I paid for an old Vauxhall Wyvern.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Well, Dad paid for it and I paid him back. So it had bench seats, column change. It was fun. Yeah, I loved it.
They were very basic. In terms of mechanics, you could buy bits and you could put them in, and you didn't have to take it to a computer and get it plugged in by a technician. And weekend tinkering with the car became a regular ritual. You could see it all down the street with people with their bonnets up. And so
The manager of the shop insisted that I learnt to drive, and the lessons were 19 and 6, which Actually, considering that I was only getting £6 a week, it was quite a lump sum out of mid-pay, really. But I learned to drive in 6 months, and then I took the van across the Mendips, which was quite an experience in those days, in a little A35 van.
A Morris Minor 1000. Not a Morris Minor with the windscreen divided into two. The Minor 1000 with a whole windscreen. Lovely. The only car I ever really loved.
So supermarket shopping. We went from shop to shop in Meadow Street and Orchard Street, and into the High Street, into all those shops that are long gone now, like the Home and Colonial and David Gregg's and all those sort of people. Yes, because she would buy her butter and cheese in one place and her bacon in another. And
that's quite hard to answer because I could make clothes as well, and fabrics were readily available. Rockies, Austin's in Newton Abbot, all had very good haberdashery departments, and I would make clothes for myself and my friends, and I was still making for other people and getting paid for it. So I definitely think I had modern clothes and the latest fashions.
The thing that really changed in the 60s to me, from a retailing point of view, because that's what I was in, was the fact that retail price maintenance was taken away, and I think that was about in 1966, it must have been. And supermarkets came and they cut price, wines and spirits, and key markets and fine fare, and they would undercut. And I mean, the area manager I had in Applegate's turned around and said, "Oh, they won't last long." But unfortunately, Applegate's were the company that went to the war, not key markets and fine fare.
The average inflation and GDP during the 60s was 3.5%, which is pretty good compared to today. But even more impressive from a consumer point of view is, by the end of the decade, our disposable income was 25% higher than it was at the beginning of the decade. So we were feeling better off, and that enabled us to do more things and enjoy life more.
I mean, you could say partly because I certainly wasn't the most brilliant at helping with the housekeeping, and I was fond of a drop of beer from time to time.
in the breakfast room, there was open fire. And so he put a back boiler in there. That's for hot water. That was all our... We didn't have an immersion heater. We just had that back boiler for hot water. And then we had a gas fire in the dining room and one in the front room.
Chalet bungalows, they were called, 2-bedroom. And though on the outskirts of St Austell, within walking distance of the middle of town, it was something like 500 for the land and 1,500 for the house. Something like that, something like £2,000.
We bought our first bungalow, it was, in 1965. It was 3 bedrooms on a new estate, and we paid £2,500 for it, I remember. We really thought we were on the way up.
And we had a Rayburn for cooking. So that was on. So we all congregated round the fires or in the kitchen.
Okay.
So, but the bedrooms were freezing. Ice on the inside of the windows, but that was every winter. The Kennedy assassination, it was good to know about it because we hadn't ever heard any world news before, not properly. I'm sure Mum and Dad did if they listened to the radio, or the wireless as it was back then.
In Tregenessy, black and white set, and we watched England win, which somehow seemed to make the whole of, well, I don't know about the whole of England, but the whole of Tregenessy, certainly, a happier place, a happier place.
The moon landing in '69, that was big, and I remember how impressed my grandfather was. He saw a man go to the moon. I can remember him we saw it on the television, and I can remember him thinking how amazed he was that he remember seeing the first aeroplane, and there he was seeing somebody walking on the moon. Yeah, it was just incredible.
I've never seen it before or since. The waves actually froze coming over the sea wall. So not only do we have the snow and the ice on the road, but the waves have actually frozen in the air. I mean, it was an amazing sight just walking along.
The event I remember most, and there were a number in the 60s, of course, was the Cuban Missile Crisis, when Russia was threatening to install missiles in Cuba. President Kennedy said, no, you're not going to do that, and it became an eyeball to eyeball. And we came within, I should think, 1 or 2 days of nuclear war. It was a very worrying time. In the end, a deal was done, but it came close, and that stayed with me.
The 50s were still pretty austere after the war, and I think people were generally beginning to feel we're coming out of this. We've got a little bit more spending power, and I think that yes, I do think it felt better, that was the general atmosphere for people. So I think people felt they had a little bit more money in their pocket. They could spend money on enjoying themselves more.
But I think we worked harder. I think we worked harder, and I think we worked longer. And I think we probably worked for, comparatively speaking, less money. There were fewer people with motor cars, for instance.
The 60s to me was a good time to be young, because suddenly the young were the people that mattered. Pop became the big thing, and the influence of the American pop industry dwindled because of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the other groups. I think it was in 1965 or 66 there wasn't an American #1 in this country, which was unheard of up until then.
I think it was a time when, certainly in my own life, my parents became a little more affluent. They could afford to buy their own house.
If you think about the 60s, it's a time when the sun came out. We'd been through the 1940s with the storm clouds. Things had got better slowly during the 50s, but by the time we got to the 1960s, the sun came out and people were smiling and enjoying themselves.
The end of the 50s to the end of the 60s was a period of huge change and huge excitement, and a promise of better things to come.
We would like to thank the friends who have shared their memories of their 1960s. We hope that you enjoyed their journey and that you found of it interest. As always, thank you for watching.